It's Ron Reader digs the universe. I'm Ron Reader, and this is Ron Reader Digs the Universe, and tonight, the Great Texas Fudgsicle Eruption. And yes, for this metaphoric construction, Fudgsicle means frozen pieces of shit. I'm assuming that you already know what it is I'm digging into here, how last week Texas power generators froze, taking the electrical grid with it, in the process freezing millions of Texans, a number of whom died, all preventable. How we were seconds away from frying the electrical grid as the electrical supply went way down while demand shot into the stratosphere, which would have caused massive power outages for months while distribution companies essentially rewired the entire state. How Republicans laughably blamed the entire debacle on green energy, which is only a fraction of the state's power supply. And I've just got to say, that is likely the stupidest lie I have ever heard conservatives tell. And it all happened in a state whose leaders alternate between kneeling in front of and bending over for the fossil fuel industry, ground zero for global warming denial, where politicians are all on energy companies' payrolls. And so these politicians deregulated the energy industry a couple decades back. Conservatives simply don't understand economics and really don't give a shit that they do. I mean, you know, maybe they think they understand economics, but it seems to me at this point that everything that they say about the topic is really just to please their corporate and wealthy donors. Grab that cash with both hands and make a stash. One of the big parts of that power industry deregulation here in Texas was setting up a stupid, impossible market for electricity, trading megawatts like they were pork bellies or frozen orange juice concentrate. Enron designed the trading system, which treated consumers about as fairly as the company treated its stockholders when the company collapsed in fraud and scandal. Competition for electricity consumers was supposed to lower consumer prices for electricity, but of course prices went up, and who the fuck knows whether or not they're getting a good deal here in Texas. Like Texans are supposed to have perfect knowledge of the fluctuating electricity market. So power deregulation in Texas was fucked up from the get-go, and it was obvious at the time. What was not so obvious at the time was exactly how the whole deregulatory regime in Texas was going to explode, or rather, erupt. Erupt tons of frozen pieces of shit all over the state. You know, the reason we even have the concept of regulating business in the first place is because it is understood that lots of businesses, in their greed, are going to fuck people over, injure them, kill them. So, to an extent, it is fair to say that deregulation equals death. We regulate business to keep people from dying, among other things. And this is simply not acknowledged by conservatives. Instead, they characterize regulation as government being on people's backs, or too much government. They transmute the notion of keeping people alive into stupid, faux oppression. It's total bullshit. I mean, if your business model fucks people over, gets people killed, then you should not be allowed to do business. Just fuck you. You're a pox on the land. And that's why it is so fucking stupid to put public goods like electricity in private hands. Why it is so fucking stupid to have a separate from the rest of the nation power grid. Profit means cutting corners, as many as you can, and if someone dies, well, we'll just handle the lawsuit. Cost of doing business. And it's not just electricity in Texas. This last week, Texas refineries released copious amounts of toxic gases into the air, when their equipment started freezing up and they had to shut down. A ton of benzene was released in Baytown alone. A ton of fucking benzene, one of the most carcinogenic chemicals ever created by humanity. Of course, refineries in Texas have always been like that. Numerous studies consistently show abnormally high cancer rates in Texas petrochemical towns. Shit, the entire population of Baytown has asthma. So, the ravages of deregulation have been destroying Texans' lives below the radar for many, many years. But it is now getting so obvious, so disruptive, so deadly, you just can't miss it anymore. I mean, we Texans we're covered from head to toe in frozen shit right now. I sincerely hope my home state finally starts to understand that deregulation, letting businesses do whatever the fuck they want, is fudge. And by fudge, of course, I mean shit. I'm Ron Reeder, and this has been Ron Reeder Digs the Universe. Join me, Ron Reeder, again next week for another episode of Ron Reeder Digs the Universe. For this metaphoric construction, Fudgsicle means frozen pieces of shit.